Welcome to FSG Kickoff 2025. Got a good crowd here.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome.
Woo!
And by the way, just to remind everyone, this session is being recorded, so just be aware of that, so that we can publish it later. So I try to keep these meetings relatively short. I'm gonna have to keep admitting people, so this will take Mr. Henke and Frank. I try to keep these meetings relatively short for those of you that haven't been to one of these before. So figure half an hour, 45 minutes is kind of where I shoot for. Our agenda is we're going to talk about 2024 and how it went, which was fabulous. We'll talk about some goals and departments. We'll talk about departments and budget. Things which didn't go so well, I prefer to refer to them as improvements we can make. I'll go through 2025 status, and then the last thing is we'll talk about the volunteer information form page. Okay, so here's 2023 versus 2024. 2023 had 272 attendees. 2024 broke that 300 mark and we got up to 323.
Are you sharing?
Yeah, I should be. Am I not sharing?
Nope.
No.
Let's share again. Hang on a second. There we go. There, now we're sharing. Okay, so attendance for 2023 was 272. 2024 was 323. 17% increase year over year. So while other festivals and other events are slowly declining, as we we're talking about before the meeting started, we are growing and at incredible rates. 2023 had 52 workshops. 2024 had 72 workshops. It was huge. Vending, I think we had 15 is what I counted in 2023, and we had 20 in 2024. So we had a 28 increase there. And then the big number we had is in 2023, we had 35 volunteers, and in 2024, we had 55 volunteers doing various stuff. So that was a 44% increase. So across the board, everything is growing and growing at what I consider to be outstanding rates. Which brings us to 2025. 2025 is going to be an unusual year for us because we are booking some really big names, potentially as both musicians, which Brian has done a fabulous job on, and some presenters we're going after. We may have Jason Mankey example for out here for next year. I'm finishing negotiations with him. We've got another couple featured presenters I'm talking to that are really big name draws. That means that when I did budget and I projected numbers, I looked at 2 numbers and really 3 numbers. This should be 600. By the way, our forecasted attendance numbers for next year are going to range somewhere between 400 and 600. I think we'll be in the 500 to 600 ranges where we'll be at. That's a big jump. But because of that, on budgetary purposes, when we get to budget, we'll talk about that, is I set budget levels based upon how many attendees we're expecting to look at. And we'll have a pretty good picture of how many people we'll have probably by March or April based upon numbers we're seeing. Workshops, we want to stay at least 70, might go as many as 100. That would be huge. If we have 100 workshops, Shelley will go insane. Shelley is on an airplane. So vending, Jim and I talked at Pagan Pride Day. He wants to go to 35 vendors next year.
Hold on. No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he wants to go to 35 vendors next year. Volunteers, because of that, I want to go from 50 volunteers to 75 volunteers for the festival. There will be more comps as a result of that, but I want to kick our volunteer numbers up as well. So those are our goals. Do you have a question, Jeff?
I was wondering, when you're running that number, what's the formula? Are you saying for every 25 people, we need 2 more volunteers? Or is there a formula? Or are you just kind of winging it?
Yeah, it's an eyeball.
Okay.
I will probably look at it. I know you specifically, you and security will need to develop a formula for that. I've budgeted you, so you should not have any problems. When we look at budget, we'll take a look at that. I've given you enough where if you have to comp a bunch of people and potentially pay some people, the money's there for you now. You get as these numbers go up, your numbers go way up. Here's our department heads for right now. If this is wrong, please let me know. First of all, yes, I'm coordinator for 2025. And my assistant for 2025 will be Patty. Thank you, Patty. Patty has said she is interested in becoming a coordinator. First person who really is ready to go and really excited about it. And so we will her next year. She's gone insane. But I will be training her up this year. So hopefully in 2026, I can become an emeritus and she can take over. Programming is Shelley. Entertainment. Brian Henke has stepped in for entertainment this year. A lot of you know Brian Henke. And he's done a fabulous job, and we'll talk about what he's done for this year. Set up and tear down will be Joel. Shelley will run pool for another year. Mary Roker will continue to run sweats. Stacy will continue to run finance for one more year. Jeff, I assume you'll run medical for one more year. I put Craig Setti as your assistant. Bella Caldera will be on security with Frank Stormcatcher as her assistant. Patty, what's Ren's last name?
Snook.
SNO. Okay, got it. There we go. So Ren will be taking over for Patty, so Patty can devote her time to becoming coordinator. And this is not Morgan McNulty, but Morgan McNutty. We'll be running Fire Circle. Shane will continue to run bus. Juliet will continue to run registration, and Jim Welch and Shadow is his assistant. Will run merchants, and then next year Shadow will take over for that. So that is our department heads. I'm going to follow up with everybody, get current emails and everything, because that was some issues last year, and make sure we've got that. Okay, budget. I budgeted at 400, 500, 600, 100 attendees. This is an officially approved budget. If we want to make changes, I've got to go back to the executive board and ask for changes. I don't think that will be a problem, but here we go. So bus stays relatively static at $1,500 because that doesn't change. Coordinator's budget goes up because I also have to pay for printing and some other things. Entertainment went with a strict budget of $12,000. Fire Circle is $1,400, $1,750, and $2,100. Medical at 400 attendees, I gave you $1,700, well, $1,666, $67, $2,083 at 500, and $2,500 at 600 attendees. And I will publish this and send it out to everybody too. Merchant starts at $1,000 and goes to $1,600. Pool stays the same because they just have lifeguards and t-shirts to pay for. Programming starts at $8,000 and goes up to $12,000. Registration starts at $1,000 and goes to $1,500. And again, that's primarily because we have to print more stuff. Security starts at $1,300, which is more than they had $1,000 last year, and will go to $2,000 if we hit 600. Setup and teardown starts at $1,000 and goes to $1,500. Now, I will say that setup and teardown, we're going to have to probably increase our budget, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into improvements and stuff. Sweats, I started at $933. That's up because we have to buy new stones this year and do some comps, and then it goes all the way up to $1,400 at 600 attendees. Teen programming started at $500 this year and goes up to for the next year and $750 at 600. Website, we pay, it's $24 a month, I think what it is, what the rate is for that. I've been paying it out of my pocket. And so it's going to still stay at 300. It doesn't change.
Question for you, Scott.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have the numbers of how we all did as far as budgeting this last for 2020?
We don't have specific numbers. We did make a profit. We made about $15,000 last year.
Okay.
We did break in the black. I don't quite have the final numbers yet. There's still some stuff we're working on with respect to that, which we'll get to in a little while about that particular issue. Okay. But we did make money last year. We made enough money where I think we've got enough money in the bank to pay our deposit for Ramblewood for next year already, which is where we want to be. I did not put a slide for this because I didn't want it written down anywhere. At 400 attendees, we are a $60,000 festival. That's our total expenditures. We're a $90,000 festival. And at 600 attendees, when everything push comes to shove, congratulations, folks. We're now a festival whose total budget for everything will exceed 6 figures. That's kind of one of the big, when you think about budgeting stuff, going from 5 to 6 figures is a big milestone. Ultimately, I think when I ran the numbers, we're at about $107,000 total expenditures at 600 attendees. it's a big budget. At least for me, that's for a festival. For basically, we're spending $100,000 in 5 days. Think about that. That's kind of crazy. So that's the budget. I will publish this budget out and I'll publish what you need. Each department needs to spend money on, and if we need to adjust it, we'll go back to the executive board and change it. There is some flexibility here, because some departments have already spent their budget for the year and they didn't spend all of it. And other departments may need more, but I wanted to give us a baseline to start with. Okay, let's talk about improvements and changes. And probably the biggest one is that I have committed to, in 2024 and 2025, to complete documentation of everything. I've already started some of it. If you go to the website, you'll notice we now have things like information for vendors, information for volunteers, information for presenters, stuff that I'd commonly get questions on. And what I have not shared out yet, because it's not right in a position to be shared out with, other than for a few people, is I am in the process of writing a complete festival guide. It will be about a 200-page document which says, this is how this festival is run. Everything from the website to soliciting volunteers, to Facebook, to marketing, to what you do on site, how you attract presenters, how you attract music groups. Literally, I'm going to sit down and document everything. This will be theoretically Patty's Bible in 2026. I've been pinged by a number of organizations when I said I was doing this. I said, would you please create a sanitized version of that so that anybody who wants to run a festival, there's a guide to how to do it. And I said, that would be generation 2. So we are going to document everything. So that's the first big improvement I want to make this year. Second one is the trustees have asked for us to do a better job of what I refer to as pre-event accounting. In the past, we've always done the reconciliation at the end of the festival. Both the executive board and trustees have asked, can you kind of give us a feeling for expenditures as they happen and between now and August? I'm going to try to develop some kind of process in place so that we can do that. So I want to have us rolling accounting instead of Scott and Stacy going crazy after the event. We've already made some online registration improvements. Last year's registration page was incredibly confusing to people. If you haven't registered yet, if you go to the registration page, it is infinitely easier. Basically, what we did is meals are now add-ons instead of tickets. And so your tickets are basically your 9 different types of tickets that you have for the adult, young adult, child, and infant, and then 6 day, 4 day, 3 day, and 1 day passes and concert passes. So a lot less options, a lot easier to understand. I haven't got many questions about it, so it seems like it's working now. So that's the next thing I want to improve, is I want to make sure our online registration works better. There are some trade-offs by making meals add-ons, but I'm talking to Humanitix about that and seeing if we can fix that. Next one is volunteers. I made some bad decisions last year with respect to volunteers, and I'm willing to fess up to that, where I tried to give people the opportunity to work in multiple departments. We're probably, for the most part, going to rescind that, where if you're a volunteer in one department. It causes them all sorts of scheduling nightmares. So we're going to make volunteers for one. If you're a volunteer, with some few exceptions, when you're volunteering for one department. I'm looking for someone to start to serve as a volunteer coordinator. Now, we're not bringing back mandatory volunteer shifts, at least at this stage of the game. What I'm looking for is, with us going to 75 to 100 volunteers, that person would be responsible for saying, okay, here's a volunteer, here's who they go to. Here's another volunteer, here's who they go to. Basically doing that shuffling around. It's getting to be a big enough job that it needs its own person.
Here's a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
With that volunteer coordinator, how does it work with departments who, say, for instance, we already have a majority of our teams kind of made up and it's really only fill in for 1 or 2?
Anybody who's volunteering still needs to fill out the volunteer form,
Yeah.
and it would still need to go, but they could check the I want to work for registration, and they could check that box. And then they will get slammed to them. But we still need, and that was one of the problems we had this year is not all of our volunteers actually filled out the volunteer page. So it was very hard for me to track who was a volunteer and who wasn't. So we're going to be pretty hard nosed that if you have someone who wants to be a volunteer for your department, even if they don't want to be comped, I need to have them on the volunteer list so that I know where they're going. That's going to be pretty important. And so if you have someone you want, just tell them, look, go fill out the volunteer page. It's easy to fill out. It's basically, what's your name? What's your email? What days are you going to be on site? What department or departments are you interested in? And they can just check the one box. And that's about it. Pretty easy.
Gotcha.
And we ask, do you expect to be paid or comp? Is the other question.
Scott, there's a couple hands up, Joel and Frank.
Oh, hang on. A couple questions on the chat window. I pinged. So Jules asked, did we ping look at Pensac? Yes, I pinged, did not hear back.
Aw.
As said, is that separate people that have volunteered? That 75 is in fact separate people that have volunteered. If Ray is okay with it, I happy. Jules, ping Ray, and we'll find out.
Yeah.
Trish Crowley says, as someone who helps to document projects, I will. Yes, Trisha, you and I will be talking. I've got to share that document that I've got with you so far. Rachel said, what about the communication with volunteers? I know people that have never heard anything. So we'll talk about that a little bit. One of the things you'll see here on this list is communication. We'll talk about that as well. So the answer is yes, that is on our list. And that's so that was another reason to get a volunteer coordinator is we want to improve communication with volunteers, and having a volunteer coordinator will help with that. So that's all the questions. Okay.
No, there's two people got their hands up.
Oh,
Joel.
Joel, what did you have?
You are.
The one thing with setup and tear down, and I know that you don't want to do a lot of split shifts. Our big heavy days are always the setup day and Sunday. So if people are working the meat of the festival in the middle and want to help set up canopies, because we're probably going to look at the heavier canopies this year.
Right, we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Then, I can use people who might be working the pool, but say, hey, I can help you a bit on Monday and I can help you a bit on Sunday. I will take all the extra hands I can get.
Yeah, that setup and tear down I put under a special category. Let's you and I talk about it, and the answer is that's a little bit different. So the problem we had this year is we had people working for multiple departments during the festival, and these departments required a shift setting shifts, and it became a huge nightmare getting those scheduling set. S, you raised your hand.
Yeah. The one of the reasons why some of us volunteered for multiple departments is that we volunteer for one department, but they didn't use us very much.
Right.
And we wanted to contribute more, so that's why we would say, okay, well, we'll go help out, security or camps or whoever because of that.
I get it. It's just the problem we ran into is and we can look at this. It literally became a scheduling nightmare, where what would happen is the person would get scheduled for one department, and they'd be also on another department, and they get scheduled for another department, and the schedules would conflict.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I was saying that I agree with the thing of only volunteering for one department. But how can what happens if we want to do more? I guess that's what I'm asking.
And that we'll figure out.
Okay.
Let me think about it, and I think we can find some solutions to that. Frank, you raised your hand?
Yeah. The one caveat I would have for any volunteer coordinator is for certain areas, and the ones that come to mind for me immediately are security, medical, and sweats.
Right.
Don't automatically assign people to us. Send us the people so that we can vet them and figure out if they'll be a good fit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And your departments, it's very specific, but I will tell you, in other cases, in other departments, bus and some other departments, they've said, these are people we've had in the past, please do not bring them back. So into my department. Okay, Jeff, you raised your hand?
Yeah, this was an issue for me at medical, as you and I have spoken about, but it was only, the big thing for me was because I've been working on setting up our team since February. A lot of the volunteers that signed up with me didn't realize, and I didn't realize to tell them that they also had to sign up separately with the volunteer form because I thought that was a different form. So some of that was on me as a department head.
No,
I didn't tell them to go sign it up. So I know you had a problem. Then when they did come to me, they said, "Hey, Jeff, they tell me I'm going to volunteer, but now they're telling me they're going to find me sleeping places." And I said, "No, you're going to be with me." So I didn't understand that. So some of this was my education too. I understand. I get it a little bit more now, so I'll make sure they all know they have to fill out the volunteer form.
Yeah, it's that volunteer form is said. I completely get why you did what you did, and it made sense. As this festival is growing, I need to put stuff in place so it becomes manageable, because while I can mostly handle all this stuff in my head, I'm not going to ask anybody else to do that, because it drove me a little crazy this year, and it was certainly not your fault. It just drove me a little crazy this year. And the more we get down where someone can go to a document and say, okay, here's where things are at, the better it'll be. Does that make sense, Jeff?
I got it. Yeah, I concur. I just know it more now. I didn't know it then.
Well, and I'll also say is that, to be perfectly honest, is as all of you know, I'd never run a pagan festival prior to taking over this one. There's a good a way to start here. Take over one of the biggest festivals in the area. And we were also having to reinvent a lot of stuff along the way. We're finally getting to the point where I feel like we've got about 90 to 95% of the procedures in place. And we're going to spend the next year getting us over the finish line on that one, so that when Patty takes over and the people who follow her take over, there is always room for improvement, but at least we'll have a baseline and say, look, if we do these things, we know we can run a festival. We're almost there. Any other questions or thoughts? Good questions, by the way, and comments. Okay, that's volunteers. So yeah, I'm looking, and the thing is that as we grow, I can see us at a point where we have 100 volunteers. That clearly needs someone who that's their job. And someone was going to say something.
Yeah, this is Catnip here. I just had a quick question on if we're trying to gain volunteers, then if there's someone who is specifically interested in medical and need to be vetted, what's the process look like for like giving them that information?
Anybody who wants to volunteer, the process is always the same. Go to the website and fill out the volunteer form. That is the first step for any volunteer at any level. Now, for medical and security in particular, they will then need to be vetted. Other departments, there's some level of vetting, but it's not nearly as extreme. But it always starts with go to the website and fill out the volunteer form. Does that help?
Yep, crystal clear. Thank you.
Yeah. It's all about getting a process in place. And the first step in that process is filling out that form. Because that way, I mean, I hate to say this, is that when someone fills out that form, I get an email notice somebody's filled out the form. At least I know that they're there and I've got all the core information I need to start them down whatever rat hole we have to put them through. Other questions? Okay, let's talk briefly about setup, teardown. Joel is doing a fabulous job about getting set up and tear down, and I think Eric is taking on as his assistant. I've got to put that in.
Yeah.
We need more setup and tear down people, obviously, particularly at the beginning and the end. The big thing about setup and tear down, which is going to change the budget a little bit, is there was an incident in Pennsylvania this year with a festival that had a storm roll through, where they lost all of their easy ups. Literally, they lost all of their infrastructure because of storms.
Yeah.
We had storms. Now, we were fortunate. We lost a few, but we didn't lose many tens. But it seems to me, based upon our climate change and everything else that seems to be going on, that 10 by 10 easy ups, while very convenient for setup to put up and down, unless we spend huge amounts of money on them, do not survive weather well. Because of that, Joel and I have talked, we're gonna migrate back from easy ups to the old style steel pole garage ones that we used to have.
We
Now there's
still, we
what?
still have a bunch of them. We just haven't deployed them because being smaller and less
Right.
manpower.
Right. So here's the good things about that. First of all, we have some. Two, they're significantly cheaper. Three is that they are do much better if you lash them down. They do much better in bad weather, and they're larger. And as the festival grows and people are more more people attend workshops, you've got more covered space. All of these are good things. The downside to them is it takes considerably more effort to put them up. It typically takes 3 or 4 people to put one up instead of 2. And so we're going to have more volunteers to set them up. But we're going to save so much money and we're not going to have to be replacing infrastructure every year. It's definitely worth it. So set up and tear down is one of my big focuses this year. And Joel started some work on that. And we're going to get that handled.
The other thing with set up and tear down, we're going to have everybody else giving us a hand, especially on Sunday if we have to be out at a certain point where we're going to need to get with people and say you need to have your part of the stuff going back to the pod ready so that we can just grab it and put it away. I'm not talking canopies. I'm talking the other stuff that departments use.
Right.
Because there were several that I had to track and get while I'm trying to pack down canopies. And if I'm having to run around with the pickup to pack down, or whoever in the future with a truck, the ability to we're going to need a time frame. This needs to be broken down right. That this.
What we need to do is there are 2 sides I think we need to do on that. And this will be as we progress. Well, probably one of our meetings will be devoted to that. Is we need better documentation. We tried it this year. It kind of failed. We'll try again. Stuff that needs to be done during festival. Get that so those requests are in. It started this year. We'll keep working on it. And the second one is we need to have every department say, okay, prior to festival, here's setup I need, and at the end of festival, here's the shutdown, and here's what's going to have to be shut down, and documenting that so Joel, and your setup crew knows I need to go to merchants, and merchants has 4 tents that need to come down, and this needs to come down, and the hay needs to be cleaned up, and so for every department we know, here's the stuff that needs to happen. Now, some departments won't have anything, like pool probably won't have anything. Other departments may have a very long list. Will that help, Joel?
Yes, that'll help. And time frames. So, because I need to be, truck needs to be here to here to here to here to here on a schedule, especially on Sundays. Because if we're being told we have to be completely off site at 2:00, we have to adhere to that schedule because that's Harry and Jesse's schedule for us.
Yeah.
Scott, do you know already if the week after us is booked at Ramblewood?
Don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
I do know on the plus side, I did not announce this is from a scheduling perspective, we now have both Sunday and Monday for setup. Sunday and Monday, we can come on site Sunday afternoon, and I don't think I started festival till Tuesday afternoon. So we got Sunday and Monday for setup, and then Tuesday is when we'll start. And really Tuesday afternoon is when we open up Reg, I think is the way I set up. So
that's good. And don't get excited, Scott, and decide to let the attendees in on Monday. Give us the full 2 days.
Our current plan is staff on Sunday, staff on Sunday, vendors on Monday. Okay, Steve, thank you. Tricia said, is it possible to work with programming not to schedule classes Saturday afternoon for the setups? Okay, we absolutely have to have classes on Saturday without question. That is our hottest slot.
That's not what I asked.
Okay, that's what I read.
I said on the setups that take more time to break down. Is it possible not to schedule a class on the last slot on Saturday afternoon, put them in the tin can where it's already in an
Okay.
enclosed building. You don't need a temp. I didn't say no classes. I said
Yeah.
just where it takes more time. to get them out.
Okay. I can let Shelley and Joel figure that out. The
Right.
answer is
Just-
probably
That's a
yeah,
good
yes.
idea,
Shelley and
Tricia.
Joel need to
Nice.
figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, from a standpoint of classes, we can cut off at a certain point,
Right.
but if it's hot, the inner buildings for some things
Right.
just don't work.
Don't
So
work.
that's why we were migrating to pop-ups.
Yep.
Nope,
Yep.
I get it. It's just,
Mm.
how can we make it so you have more time to pack up and you don't feel like you're under the gun?
Right. Like I said, the big thing is all the other departments and little stuff being handled where I don't have to go. Is your stuff ready? Is your stuff ready? Is your stuff ready? And
Yeah.
So it
stop
sounds like you also need a coordinator.
it.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
seriously, that's exactly what an assistant should be doing and running around so you can coordinate the actual packing. I don't know if you need another volunteer or somebody on your team that can do that, but
He's got
that
someone.
sounds to me like two different jobs. And
Right. Well, that's how we were doing it this year. Eric was running the crew and I was running the coordination.
I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to cut this short because that whole setup teardown is going to take an hour-long discussion.
Yep.
We'll devote a meeting to it, and this is kind of our kickoff meeting. It's definitely something we will address, and we will improve. But I don't want to spend the next hour talking about setup and teardown. So, okay. Next one are comps. I got to do a better job of documenting comps. This year I did, every person got a different comp code. That just ended up being a nightmare like you can't even imagine. I've got to rethink how we do comps. Will still work. It's a question of, I think probably what I'm going to do is each department will have their own comp code. And so if you're a department head and you want to comp somebody, you just hand them your comp code and you'll tell me how many comps you want to give out. And I'll set the maximum count to that. And when it hits it, that comp code will just stop working. And if you want more, you're going to have to come back to me and ask me to increase that number. So we're going to go to fewer comp codes, probably by department. And then there will be some comp codes for like special cases, special cases. Marketing, we're going to increase our marketing. You may have seen some of that happen already. We actually created not only the standard FSG event, but we also have events for every band on Facebook. We've done TikTok advertising. We've done Instagram advertising. We've actually got an advertising marketing budget of $1,000 this year. And it's not coming out of my pocket like it did last year. And so that's it. Communication is something I really want to work on this year, which is why we're kicking off so early. I want to go more and more to using the email list we have. Every volunteer and every department head should be on the email list. So that way there's documentation. And if you can't make the meetings, I'll post links to the meeting notes and everything there. And so I want to get more and more communication effectively. T-shirts. T-shirts ran pretty well this year. Both staff T-shirts I need to work on, and then I'm hoping that we'll actually be able to do pre-event T-shirt sales this year, working with the T-shirt vendor so that someone can actually pay for a T-shirt and get it out, get it at festival ready to go. I think ultimately that will be easier for the vendor.
I'll make a note of it and talk to Sue about it.
Yeah, I know we had talked, I think Stephen had talked to them or somebody had talked to them and they said they were working on their website.
I did.
Yeah, so I know Shadow, that's right, you did. I know somebody did. And if they can get their website up and get sales up, then we can just say, if you want a T-shirt, go here. And then we'll let them figure out how they want to handle delivery and everything. Okay, God, we got a whole bunch of chat messages. Hold on a minute. Ideas, groups. Yeah. Yeah, so there was a lot of discussion about we will not have, I can almost assure you that it is unlikely that we're going to have Monday for pack out. Sunday is still going to be pack out day. And we'll talk more about that and we'll have a better picture. We actually booked pretty early. But this year we got a great date. We actually had next year's date when we ended festival this year. But I can almost assure you we will not have Monday as a pack out day. It's just not going to happen. Okay, so those are the improvements or changes. Lots of good improvements we're going to work on. Okay, so
Scott,
first,
Scott,
go ahead.
quick question back on comps.
Yeah.
What's the guidance for volunteers on when they should register? Should they wait for a comp code or register anyway?
I would have them fill out the volunteer first and then wait to register until they've talked to their department head about a comp.
Okay, thank you.
So volunteer form first, then comp. Though we can, wow, that's weird. Okay, hang on a second. Okay. I've reversed 2 slides, so I got to go back here. 2025 status. Congratulations, folks. We are way ahead of where we were last year. And that was mostly my fault because I got exhausted and got started really late. We have a logo. Thank you, Jim and the t-shirt vendor. This is our logo for the year. Right there. Isn't that fabulous? Our theme is Rising from the Roots, which is really good. This is going to make a fabulous t-shirt. That's going to be negative. Where all the white is going to be negative space. Should be really interesting. Should be for a good t-shirt. Everybody
It won't be quite as inky as the other ones were. So
right. Won't be as inky. And everybody that I've talked to that has seen this logo says this is a great logo, even though it's a cowboy font that's underneath it. But they say that's okay. It looks good. So we've got a logo. Registration has been open. We've gotten a few registrations, not a ton, but it's still really early. We got a bunch of post-event registrations, and they kind of trickle in. I don't expect to see any serious move on registrations until probably January. Now, that being said, if you're talking to people about registering, I am capping at 600 this year. When we hit 600 multi-day passes, not concert passes, but if we hit 600 total attendance, I'm going to close down registration, pause, and take a pause, and then all the departmental heads will sit down and say, are we really prepared to go above 600 or not? So if people are worried, and it is possible that we might exceed 600. I'm not saying it's likely, but it is possible. But registration is open. The rates are good. They won't go up again until after the first of the year. And that's it. Entertainment is set. Hang on, got to go up too. If you haven't seen what our entertainment is this year, why aren't you watching Facebook and emails and stuff? Brian Henke has done an incredible job getting us entertainment this year. If you're not aware of any of these groups, go out on YouTube, go out on the net and search them down and listen to them. Our Saturday night band this year is Tawatha Dea. They are a pagan folk band out of the Tennessee area. They have about 7 or 8 members. They are a super band, and boy, do they do good stuff. And they have a huge following. So they're our Saturday band. Our Friday band is The Muses, which is S.J. Tucker.
Awesome.
And Brian, who are the other 2 people? I can never remember their names.
Ginger Doss and Linda Millard, who are amazing, and Renee Jansky. They're basically a super group. And they had decided this year that they weren't going to tour anymore. And basically I talked, because they got their own separate careers, and they do really well on their own. But for us, they're getting back together to do this, which is awesome.
So this will be their final concert as a group. And some of them may perform on Wednesday night as well.
Ginger and Linda, yeah.
But they said they want to perform on Wednesday as well. And they may teach some classes, which would be really cool.
Yes.
Ora Chaya is coming back on Thursday, and Brian's going to play on Thursday. Because he didn't play an evening concert this year. So congratulations. This is a real, and this is one of the reasons why our 600 may be there, is with these bands, if we can start publicizing them, and they will publicize for us too, is we may start to see some numbers go up really, really fast. So thank you, Brian. You've done a great job. And we will see where it goes.
Scott.
Brian, just make sure they play Witch's Rune for me, please.
Scott,
yeah, go ahead.
can I get a postcard with the QR code and on one side and then the entertainment on the other side?
Drop me an email. Drop me an email. I can generate one for you.
The rock shop that was a vendor this year.
Yeah.
is willing to put the postcards in their shop
Okay.
for us.
Yeah,
So
I did the
I
postcards
want to get
without the QR
another 100.
code. Yeah.
I want
I
to
did
get
the
another
postcard-
100 printed.
Yeah, I did the postcards without the QR code. But just drop me a quick email and I'll get one with the QR code to you.
Okay.
Thank you to Morgan and the fire crew. They have volunteered to be our main ritual team this year. So we already have our main ritual team this year. I've asked them to start giving us bio and description information, and we hope to have that in a little bit. I have started talking to featured presenters. I reached out to a bunch of different possible presenters. The ones I feel comfortable talking about is I think we will probably get Jason Mankey out here. He is on the West Coast, and one of his requirements is that his flight has to be paid for, which is not unreasonable, but from the West Coast is expensive. But, and here's where the big but is, there's another festival in Connecticut the week after ours that he wants to go to. And so I said, look, if you'll pay for my flight out and half the train fare up to Connecticut, the other side will pay the other half of the train fare and the flight back. So we're basically getting him at half rate, which is great. The other person is, and some of you may be familiar with this person, some of you may not, is I am in final negotiations with Lee Harrington to come back.
Ooh.
It is a closed deal except, and with Lee, the closed deal is Lee was talking to a festival out in England sometime around that time frame and had kind of made a soft commitment to them. And I said, Lee, get it soft or hard and then come out here instead. And Lee's trying to figure that out and figure out how that's going to work. So that's 2 of our 4 already. And I think I'm talking to 2 others right now. And we may have our 4 set by the end of the year. Think about this, 9 months before festival, we have our featured presenters set. Makes me really, really happy.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And we have 15 workshops and rituals submitted so far. So we're already, for our target number of 100, we already got 15% of our workshops submitted. And all the ones I saw there, I didn't see any that I wasn't particularly inclined not to accept. So if we can keep up the pace, it's not going to be, I mean, we all know that the 3 years ago was the 3 weeks from hell. Last year was the 4 months from hell. This year should be the 9 months of not hell with any luck at all. I'm finding it a lot easier. I think we had some reputational issues that we were trying to get over. I think we've gotten over those reputational issues. I'm no longer having to go out and beg. And I see that a bunch of chat messages. I'll get to them after I finish with this slide. Now I have presenters coming to me and saying, like Lee said, please, I want to come out and present. And for Lee to say that is pretty amazing. So we're getting a lot more of that involved. Okay, let me go through the questions. Wow, 7 comments. Let's see what we got here. We talked about that. We talked about that. Jules will talk about Reg. T-shirts. Yes, we talked about that. Yeah. I want to get it okay to be a final concert with them on that one. Jules, send me an email with Wendy's information. Rob Wendell will get him cards and that's it. Okay. So that's that. We've done that. Okay. Meetings. We're going to try to run a meeting schedule. I was very bad about this year. We're going to meet once a month in October, November, and December. So October, November, December, we'll probably meet the first, this is the first Sunday. This is the first Sunday of October. So we'll probably meet the first Sunday of October. Obviously, that's much better than the end of November. Because that's a problem. That's Thanksgiving, and we'll meet early in December. January, February, and March, we'll meet every other week. If we find we don't need it, if we get everything done, we're kind of just sitting there doing nothing, I'll make them less, but I want to go bi-weekly in January, February, March. April, May, June, and July, we'll do weekly meetings. Now, what I tell people is attendance isn't mandatory, but if you have something needs to address, please come. If you can't come and you have something that needs to be told about, issue a report and send it to the Free Spirit Gathering address, and I'll incorporate it into the notes. So yeah, I know it seems like a lot of meetings, as you can see, we're running at 47 minutes. This will probably be the longest meeting we've had because it's a long kickoff. Most of them are 30 or 35 minutes. Light work more often. Brian, you raised your hand?
Yes, Jason Mankey. I'm pretty sure we're going to be offering him something for Starwood.
Okay.
And if he does Starwood, he's probably going to want to do Sirius Rising, which is the week after. And a week after that is our festival.
Okay. So I'll drop an email saying Little Birdie told me.
Yeah, maybe we could, have him tour. Starwood is a lot slower, and Sirius Rising is even slower than Starwood at confirming things. But Starwood, we are trying to speed things up a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as getting things done, it will never be as good as Free Spirit as far as getting things done early. I just want you all to know I've been to a lot of festivals. I played a lot of festivals. I've been in the biggest oxymoron in the universe other than military intelligence, the music business, for a long time. And I'm really impressed with Free Spirit Gathering, and that's why I volunteered to be a part of it and do what I do for this group. You guys have done an amazing job, especially rising from the ashes the way that you did. I am very, very impressed with that. And I'll talk with Jason too. With Starwood, the speakers are not my first job, although I am involved in programming. It's more entertainment for me there. But I will be talking with Jason. I like him. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
And
I like to talk with him. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you talk with Byron yet? Byron Ballard.
Byron and I are locked. We've got that one
Okay.
locked.
All right.
Don't
Good.
worry. Bring your
Yeah.
tent.
For those of you who are wondering about that, don't ask.
Okay. Dan, you had your hand raised?
Yes. I just want to put out there before we end the meeting for everyone that of the 20 vendors that we had this year, 18 of them have been asked back. So with 35 vendors for 2025, if anybody has a vendor they would like to recommend, please send me their information.
Right. And also, since we're on this one, is the rule for vendors is the same as it is for volunteers. In fact, vendors can't even register because that's a hidden section in the registration page. It's go to the website and fill out the vendor form. Those forms on that website are the first step to any of these kinds of things.
And if our past vendors do not fill out the form, then I will not be reserving their vending space.
Right. I said, I know I'm getting pretty hardcore about fill out the form, but it's not in triplicate, so it's okay. But yeah, it's as we grow and as we try to make these jobs where we're not locked into one person doing these jobs, the more documentation and procedures we have in place, the better off we're going to be. And that way Patty won't go completely crazy next year. She'll only go a little crazy next year.
I'll know about that.
Yeah.
Just to
Okay.
reiterate, fill out the damn forms.
Fill out the damn forms. Exactly right. So that is that. Last slide for the day.
Tracy, I sent you an email, a message with my direct email.
There you go. Our next meeting, the three big topics we're going to go through, and I will send out the budget this week to everybody, is going to be, we're going to talk about volunteers and volunteer process. We're going to, Cat W just ended really late. We're going to talk about presenters and getting presenters because I want to get those in place. And then if you're a department head and you need a budget adjustment, let's get that locked down for the November meeting so I can put that out to the exec board and they can get it taken care of. And just as a note for everybody to think about is, as of this morning, it is 303 days until Free Spirit Gathering 2025. So congratulations, folks. We have 303 days, and it sounds like a lot of days,
It's
but
not.
amazing how fast that's going to come up on us. Anything else people want to talk about in terms of kickoff? I don't want to get into a lot of details at this meeting. Those will come across the next couple of months. Is there anything broad strokes people would like to raise?
I know I spoke to you about a bookmark that I was working on.
Yeah, I saw it. I've got it actually.
Yeah, I will have it done shortly. My computer time was taken up with buying a new car and navigating insurance. So
Yeah, my Alexa would say she has no idea how to help you with your computer time and stuff.
yeah. Baltimore drivers just mess us up.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for attending. It takes a while for these recordings to process, but the next day or two I'll put the recording up. Have anybody that's interested in volunteering go to the volunteer page. So I'll tell you that when someone volunteers, there are two things that will happen. First one is I immediately put them on the volunteers email list, the FSG staff list. There's that. And then probably once I've got about 30 volunteers, I'll start doing assignments. Last thing to tell everybody is FSA is starting to rebuild itself. Thank you, Stephen Reagan, for doing that. If you are not aware, voting rules for FSA are now changing. They're going back to the original rule set, which is you must be a paid member of FSA in order to have a vote in anything. And so if you're not a paid member, please, Stephen, what is the website?
It's freespiritalliance.com.
.com. Go to freespiritalliance.com, register, get your membership up and ready. Or it's only like $10, $15. It's not much.
It's
well,
$10.
$10. It'll give you voting opportunities, so that when we've got a voting which is coming out tomorrow for a trustee position, and then we'll have more voting in the summer for all the executive officers and another trustee. So go and join. Plus, it funds them, so I don't have to pay their expenses out of my money, which makes me feel better.
I have a suggestion for next year. I don't know if it can be done this year, but years ago when we did registration, they had an option on there to pay your dues when you registered.
Let me look into that, because I may be able to. Scott and myself will talk about that. We may be able to figure something out.
Yeah, because people won't always know or think to go to the webpage for for FSA.
So I can give you the short and long, the good and bad of that. Can I absolutely put on an add-on for an FSA membership? Yes, without a question. That's very easy to do. The problem with that is that then that turns around and someone has to take that information and transfer it over to the membership database, as opposed to now, where if you go to the FSA website and you click on the pay and you pay it, it generates a spreadsheet with all that information built in. So the answer is yes, it can be done. It creates some manual processes. Let me talk to Stephen and see what we can do about that and see how. But it's a good idea. And Frank, Frank, you raised your hand.
Yeah. We don't need to get into a big discussion about this now. I just wanted it on the recording as part of this. Please make sure that we're touching base on the regular with Ramblewood on the status of the carts, especially as we get closer to the festival.
Actually, I will go into that very briefly. Very briefly, which is, as all of you are aware, carts were a nightmare this year. And it was, in fact, a topic of some, not heated, but healthy discussion with Ramblewood. They realize it's a problem. They realize that their current status is not adequate. They're looking at two possible options. One is to replace all the carts, and the other one is to just abandon that and go with a third-party vendor who will come in and do carts. I think either one works for us. The plus side is, and they're going to look at it is they are looking at going from gas carts to electric carts.
Ooh, fun.
Nice.
There are some good things and bad things about it. Yeah, if you go to the Free Spirit Gathering website, there's actually a volunteer page. So if you go here, you'll see here, it says volunteer. And you click on it, and there's the form, and it actually has information about volunteering as well.
Hey, Scott,
Okay.
quick thing about carts.
Yeah.
Are we going to have some policy about people bringing their own carts? Because we had a couple people did that last year, and it caused a problem.
They shouldn't have been.
Yeah, there were 2 or 3.
Okay, I did not hear about it. I'm surprised.
One
Yeah,
person
so-
brought a
gator.
One
Yeah.
of our vendors brought in their own personal cart.
Let's talk about that. I mean, if they're just using it on Merchants Row, that's fine, but they can't be driving the site with it.
Well,
They were driving-
here's my problem, Scott, is
Yeah.
that they let their children drive that.
That's
Right.
not acceptable. No.
And
Right.
that to me is not acceptable.
No,
Yeah,
no,
and
okay.
some of the private carts were giving people rides too, which was
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We need to put that down as policy. I somehow, okay, it was a big festival last year. And it was very rainy. I was not aware that it had happened. We will put policy out saying you cannot bring your own carts.
And
fact,
I will
think
put
it's
it
policy.
in the question part of the FSA website for vending.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the person with the gator, it's not gonna be a problem this year because of other things. I don't know if they're coming back. I don't know if Jim can speak to that more, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll get
So.
that more on an agenda later. I don't want to get in depth on it. Brian, you had a question. Brian Henke had his hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to unmute there. Starwood uses a third-party vendor. As for anybody that's been to Wisteria or Starwood knows, it's huge. It's a really, really big area, and the third-party vendor, they have great carts, and on top of it, individual staff, if they want to have their own cart, can rent that separately as well.
Right.
It's something that would need to be talked about. But if you decide to go to a third-party vendor, I can tell you a little bit more about how that works.
Okay. Yeah. We'll get more. I expect we'll get more information from Ramblewood about that probably right in January, February timeframe. Any other comments, thoughts, or suggestions? Let's see if we can get this done in an hour. Thank you all for volunteering. Thank you for your work last year. Thank you for your work this year. Many hands make light work. You can always reach me on Facebook Messenger. You can always reach me via email, and I can answer questions. We will probably this year, each meeting will have, in addition to its standard reports, we'll try to focus on one item that needs to be addressed. With that, thank you all for attending the FSG 2025 kickoff. It's hard to believe this is my 5th year running a festival. And for some of you, it's been even longer than that. So thank you all. Everyone have a good Sunday afternoon wherever you're at, and we will talk to you in a month.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.